Hey guys, Thomas here with Go Fast Campers. Today I'm going to be showing you how to swap the V2 tent for our all new V2 Pro upgrade tent. The tools you're going to need is a 3/16 Allen head, a 5/32, and a 3/32, a fat trim tool, some Loctite, alcohol, paper towels, the roof tape that will come in your kit, a dead blow for some extra things there at the end, these two 5/32 and 3/16 Allen heads, and then you will need a Torx 30 bit. So additionally, we use this to make things a little bit quicker, this impact, and then hopefully you will never ever need to use this, but it's a number 3 extractor bit. Did it just spark?
Probably.
I think I stripped it, honestly.
Oh no.
Let's get to it. One thing we forgot to mention, this is going to be integral to removing all of these pieces unless you're like 7 foot tall. This is going to help a ton to get you up and level with the camper. First and foremost, I'm going to show you guys how to remove one of your beef racks. We're going to use that 3/16 Allen wrench that we talked about earlier to remove this beef rack. So what we want to do, just like I showed here, we want to make sure this is fully seated in. I always give it a little tap on the end just to make sure. Lefty-loosey, pull this out. So after that, your T-nuts are going to be recessed in here. You can pull the beef rack, kind of move it back and forth until you get that T-nut out. Pull it out. Do the same with the other side. And then to remove it, I always will roll it backwards just like this, and then lift it straight off. First step is we're going to go ahead and remove this extreme tape if your camper has it. If your camper doesn't have it, congratulations, you can move on to the next step. But for those of us that do have it, I'm going to show you the quick and easy method. We're going to take our razor blade, and there's a defined corner here. I've actually already started this one. And we're going to push it in there and actually cut this extreme tape on this line. I will note you want to be careful not to push too deep. We don't want to cut into the Plascore roof. So we'll just make sure we go ahead and go all the way down this side, and then we'll repeat that for the remaining 3 sides. All right, alternatively, if you don't want to use a razor blade and you don't want to cut all the way down, this is going to give you a much nicer and cleaner finish product, but it is going to require a little bit of elbow grease. So what we're going to do is we're just going to remove this like a piece of tape. So this one's coming off pretty easy. In full transparency, this has been on the truck for about 8 minutes. So for a lot of you folks that have had this extreme tape on the top of your truck for, maybe a year or so, maybe 2 years, it probably won't be this easy to come off, but essentially it's going to peel like tape. It's going to require a lot of elbow grease, maybe a heat gun, some creative swear words, but it will give you a much cleaner finish. All right, our next step, we're going to remove this extrusion on this driver's side, rear, and passenger side of the vehicle. The way that we do that is we're going to start by removing these black screws. You'll see that there's a recessed one here. That does not need to be removed, just the ones that are sitting on top of the extrusion. For these, you want to make sure that you are fully seated inside that bolt, similar to the way that we did on our beef rack, and we can begin to remove these. If these bolts strip, they are not easy to remove, so you want to make sure that you're careful in ensuring that this is fully seated within the head of the bolt. The reason we like to use these T-handle Allen wrenches is because of the amount of torque that you can apply to them, and it kind of works like a spring, so the more you torque, the more it will apply to the bolt itself. Not exactly a dynamic load. It also is a lot easier on your hands when doing something like this. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our impact just to make it a little bit quicker process. These bolts actually come coated with a nylon coating. If it's being super difficult, you're using your T-handle, it just won't come off. A little trick of the trade is to use some heat with that. So whether it be a heat gun or just a blowtorch, apply light heat to it or heavy heat for a small amount of time, and it should make that coating on there a little looser. It should come right out. So now that we've removed the 6 bolts here in the top of the extrusion, you can start to peel it away. You can see since I've cut here, it starts to peel away from the roof, and then you can pull it straight off like so. We'll set this aside. As we go ahead and move through the process of swapping this tent, you're going to want to make sure you keep all your hardware in one spot like we have here. That way you're not losing it, it's not rolling around. I would hate for you to get to the end of this and go, I'm missing pieces, have to call me and get new pieces shipped out to you. So keep them on one spot, it'll be helpful and you'll thank yourself there in the end. Perfect. All right, now that you've got your side extrusions removed, we're gonna go ahead and remove this roof. Hopefully you are doing yours in a nice warm climate or indoors. Unfortunately, it's July in Montana, so we have quite a bit of ice and water on the roof. It's just gonna have to be what it is. So in order to get this out, you will go up with it and then pull straight back, and then your roof is free. So it's helpful to have a secondary person here to help with it. What I'm gonna do is just kind of get the front edge over and pour all the stuff off. Perfect, so I'm going to actually remove this by myself, take it just like this, it's not very heavy, and then set it down like so. Perfect. Now at this point, I'm gonna hop off the tailgate and go set this aside. All right, when you're setting this against the wall or whatever you're propping it up on, you wanna make sure to watch out of your corners. This Plascore can delaminate in the corners. If you womp it down, it will cause it to separate. So just be careful as you're setting that down or leaning it against whatever surface. All right, so next step is we're gonna remove this lower fascia here in order to access the keter that holds the tent in. Now that you've got these 3 bolts removed, we're gonna go ahead and pry off this extrusion face. The best way to do that is using your pry tool. You can either come up from the bottom, like so. You don't wanna break your pry tool, so you wanna be very gentle, and there you go. So we'll just move down, kind of prying away at it. Go over there, just working it. Just like that. Now that we've got that rear face removed, we're going to go ahead and remove these set screws here in the end piece, just like so. Going out below it. Okay, now we're ready to actually start taking the keter or fiberglass rods out of your camper. Along with this set screw here, we need to remove this corner bolt, and this will be using a Torx or T30 bit. Okay, so looking here, you can see inside there your fiberglass rods butt up against each other. So the best way to start going about this is to remove this rear keter in the top and bottom. I always start with the top. So we'll start up here. And I recommend pulling on the fabric, moving it forward. It's kind of, it takes some work to get it to poke out, but eventually that will poke out. Another way is to take your smaller Allen wrench. This, the one that we used for the end cap, or the corner set screw will work, but I'm gonna go from the other side and push it through. Just like so. Again, it'll kind of take you working the tent while simultaneously pushing. As you can see, there it is, we'll pull it straight out. All right. So now that that one's out, you have access to your sides. So to do that, you're not going to be able to push at the front. So this is going to be where pulling on this tent fabric is come in handy. So just like that, pulling directly towards you, grab it, slide that out. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Just going to take it, pull on this fabric, like so. So if the keter starts to give you issues, especially here in the back, it can be because this fabric here, you can see this is the corner. And obviously it's not going to poke through if that is the corner. So we pull it back to get this lined up. There's a channel in here that it lines up into. And we'll start to kind of pull it back to expose that corner. So we'll just continue to work it until you can see the white fiberglass rod poking through this corner. All right, so we just worked that back and forth. So as you can see here, that white keter rod is poking through.
Oh, great.
So we'll move that fabric back, grab it all, pull it forward, slide that out. All right, now that we've got the keter out of the back and the two sides, you can actually pull the tent in. This will expose these channels in here. It just makes it so it's all out of the way. You've still got your front keter in, which we'll go ahead and address as soon as we take care of the rear and the sides on the bottom. So I like to open this up. That way you have full access down here, and then we'll see the bottom one as well. All right, now that we've got the top open, we have better access to the bottom keter here. I'm gonna go ahead and use the same method I did on the top by pushing this keter out on this side. We'll just pull it straight out, just like so. Now that we've got this rear fiberglass rod or keter rod removed, we're gonna go ahead and work the sides out. So here, I'd like to kind of pull this fabric back. You have a lot of fabric spanning the length of the tent, so kind of work that back and then put upward tension on it and start to work it out, and it'll be coming through this hole here. So again, we'll just continue to work this fabric and pull this out. It might take a little bit of back and forth, but the more fiberglass rod you can expose, the easier that will be. You can also use your Torx to push this down as you slide it out, just like this. And then here, you can see sometimes it gets caught up. Ours looks to be free, so we'll just give it a good yank, and there it is. Now that we've got these bottom pieces removed, we can move that in, and your tent is free other than at the front. So let's move up there. So now that we're gonna start working on the front, I like to be inside the camper as it's a lot easier to work that keter out from inside than it is down there. As you can see, I've removed my foam panels. That's purely just so I don't get them filthy while walking around up here. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and close this top part in order to take tension off of this front hinge. Doesn't really matter which direction or which keter you start with, but I always tend to go with the top. That way I can get it free, open it back up, and have full access to the bottom. So using the same method we did with the rear, I'm gonna push this out from this side, and you'll be able to see where that keter is. Just like that, nice and easy. And then I'm gonna open this up, pull that out. Then we have easy access to the bottom keter. All right, so looking at the bottom, there are set screws in there. So we're gonna go ahead and take those out before removing the keter rods. Take this side out. And then we'll go ahead and use the same method from the rear. Just push this through. You might, oh, there we go. Looks like it wants to come out the other side. So it's easier to work your fabric with it, kind of sliding that fabric around. That way everything is nice and free. Nothing's bunched up down in this track. And it all comes out nice and easy. Just like that, your tent is removed. Good job. All right, we got the old tent out, we got the new tent in, and we want to kind of set it up in the way that it will go into the camper. That way it's not like a big mess in here. So as you can see, I've got it folded in half here to resemble how it will be when it's all closed up. But you want to make sure that your GFC Pro logo is like this. I assure you, you do not want to start installing this and it be inside out or upside down. That would be very sad. So make sure your GFC logo is facing the correct direction, and then we'll just go ahead and fold this over so all of our bug net and bug screen is exposed here on the inside. All right, to get this first corner started, we're going to make sure that we've got the corner of the tent here with this hole pushed in to this Keter track about 2 or 3 inches. So whenever you push this in, you want to make sure that that hole is open so your Keter rod will slide in. The way that I'm inserting this is rolling it in, as that tends to help get everything started. So as you can see, just like that, we're started, and I can start pushing this down into the Keter track and then sliding it in just like this. So you can either, go with the method of putting a little down in that track and pushing a little bit in, kind of like I'm doing, or you can sit here and kind of get it all lined up, pushed in, and then that Keter rod will slide in pretty seamlessly. I prefer to do a little bit at a time just to make sure nothing's getting bunched up. And here you can see there's no wrinkles, anything like that. We can kind of move it around like such. Okay, so once you get to this middle piece for both the top and the bottom, we actually want to insert this little hooded piece, that's what I'm calling it, because it kind of looks like a hood, into the flat side. So just like this, get that longer triangulated piece. Might be a little stubborn, but we're going to get it inside that, just like so. Now that we've made it through this middle portion, we can just go ahead and continue inserting this into the track and simultaneously pushing our Keter rod through. Now that we've made it to the corner, what we're going to do is you can pull the tent fabric the opposite direction of where you want to go. So it gives it more of an opening for the Keter rod to slide out of. So I've pulled it here to the left, and I'm going to push the Keter rod out. And just like that, it is in position. So once you get it to about here, you can do as I'm doing, where you grab the tent and you move it all over simultaneously. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and actually put that set screw back in those corners. That way everything is nice and secure. All right, now that we've got the front lower portion installed, I'm going to put this down. That way there's there's no tension on the front, and I can slide that in easier. Before I do this, I want to make sure my tent is out of the way, so I'm not smashing my brand new Pro tent. Give it a good yank. Just like that. Be mindful it is pretty heavy. You've got 100-pound struts on both sides and really nothing on the roof. So now we're going to move on to getting this front portion installed. All right, so now we're here at the top, and you can see this is the track at which your Keter cord will run through, or your fiberglass rod. So here's our loop here. We want to start by just opening the loop up as much as we can and get it in that top track. It doesn't take a ton, but if we hold pressure on it, it will keep that loop open. So I'm going to start running this Keter rod through, rolling it as I go, and just like that, we are started in this loop here in the top. So similar to what we did at the bottom, I'm going to just loosely kind of put this in place My cameraman's gonna slide the keter in to make it a little bit easier. And I can adjust it just like that. All right, now that you've got the middle piece positioned up in that rail, you can go ahead and slide your keter rod through. Okay, we've got this top rail all fully seated. As you can see here, there's no wrinkles, nothing weird going on, nice and flat, nice and straight. You can see we want to poke this in to where it's flush with that bottom there. So you want to make sure when you're installing this that you're using the same keter rod from the top as when you took it out. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit longer. So make sure you're using the same keter rod. So since this is already done, we're going to go ahead and just open this back up, start working on the bottom sides, and we'll go to the rear, and then we'll do the rest of it. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and install this driver's side. It doesn't really matter which one you do, passenger or driver's side. I always lean towards the driver's side. Don't really know why. It's just kind of the way I've done it for the past few years. So this one is a little bit different than the front, in which I do start it pretty much all the way. I'll leave a little bit at the front. That way it's not super tight up there. But I do start it off here on the sides. That way it's a little bit easier to slide in. So now that we've got this started a bit in the sides, I'm going to pull this here in the corner. That way we can get a good, nice start. See, just like that. It's nice and open. I'm going to run it through the hole here. Roll it. Then go ahead, start pushing this in, sliding the rod in simultaneously. Sometimes it can tend to get caught there at the bottom. If you roll it, it can, there we go. Makes it a little bit easier when you roll it. So we'll really start pushing this down in there, feeding it in. Now, if you're good, which I'm not, you can slide the whole thing in, but you can see I'm caught down here. So again, we'll just push this all the way there, and then slide it some more. All right, then we'll back, set it some more, and then work my way down, get this in the track. And then continue to slide it, just like so. Once you start getting closer to the end, it does make it easier if you pull the fabric this way. That way the fabric is more tight, and then you can continue to work this through. And then I'll make sure at the end it's all the way pushed in. Yep, looks good. Fabric's tight, and then we'll just push it in the rest of the way. So I've got it pushed in as much as it wants to go. You can also grab the fabric and use that to slide the whole assembly forward. Don't worry about this gap here. We'll end up adjusting it as we do the rear. So now that we've got it to this point, I'm going to go ahead and insert my rear keter rod here. Note that we're keeping the fabric out of it, and we're just going to put a little bit into that track. That way this can't back its way out whenever we're working on the other side. All right, we're going to go ahead and just repeat the same process from the driver's side here on the passenger side, and then we'll start working on the rear. Once we've got this passenger side in, I've removed my keter rod from over there, and I'm going to go ahead and start on this side. It doesn't really matter which side you start on. If one's giving you a bunch of trouble, although you can switch sides and it might be a little bit easier. So I'm going to start here. Make sure that this is a nice open loop in there, kind of like it is. I'm going to start running it through that corner. Again, we're going to roll our keter rod. That way it picks it up, it doesn't bunch. Looks like we bunched a little bit here, so I'll pull out on it. Continue to roll. All right, and I found my way in. Here it kind of helps to pull the fabric back towards you and work it in. Seems like I found a little bit of a wrinkle here. That's no big deal. Continue to roll it. There we go. Made it past. Perfect. So then we'll just start to slide my keto rod all the way down. So again, continuing to roll it. That way it doesn't get caught up on any loose fabric inside of that loop. So I'm about like right here with my keto rod. You can see I've pulled the tent over to the left to open up that loop. So once that loop is nice and open, we'll continue to push this through. You want to make sure to work it back and forth. Looks like it's trying to poke through. We don't want to poke a hole in our tent fabric, so we want to be a little bit more gentle with this. Looks like it might be stuck. There we go. And then again, I'm going to use my Allen wrench here on the other side to just poke it through, make it about even. And I'm also simultaneously moving the tent fabric. That way nothing is caught up inside this channel especially. Again, just moving it back and forth, making sure these sides are even. Okay, really like how that's looking. We're going to go ahead and put those set screws back in the ends so nothing moves around. Then we're going to move on to the top. All right, so as I go to put this back in, we're going to start wanting to use a little bit of Loctite. This stuff a little bit goes a long way. So I'll just give it a little drop there, like so. And then I will insert it back into this corner piece. We're going to go ahead and repeat this process on the other side and then move on to the top. Okay, so I'm going to get my keto rod started in here. Just like that. We're about 1 inch into it. I'm going to get this loop started back here. All right. And then when you're feeding your keto rod in, there's some slack within that channel. You're going to want to try to feed it in as level as possible, continuing to roll it. That way it's picking up that keto loop. So like you can see here, or as you can see here, we are in fact within that loop. We're going to go ahead and move this back into that corner and start feeding in the loop all the way down the tent. You want to make sure here that you're not going to get any wrinkles inside it. Otherwise, that's going to start to show as your tent pops, and it's not going to look as flat as it's supposed to. So we'll continue to work this down until we make it to the end. All right, so now that we've got this pretty much fully installed, we want to poke the end of it back or all the way into its track using our Allen wrench here. A good test to know if it's actually fully seated will be inserting your Allen wrench into this hole here and making sure there's no clearance issues. Just like that, we're good to go. And then we'll just do the same thing there on the other side. We're here finishing off the rear of this thing. To get it started, you're going to want to come in close here. So this corner is fully seated where it should be. Make sure it's pulled back enough. This will kind of just find its way in. We'll get it started a little bit here, and then we'll make sure it's pushed up in there. And then we'll start threading it in using the pointed side of the keto rod. And then again, we'll just roll it in the same way we have. So kind of roll it back and forth. All right, looks like we're started. Again, want to make sure we don't have any random fabric cut up in there or wrinkles. We'll just continue to thread this in. So we've got about 3 inches left on our keter. So what I'm going to do, sometimes it'll be bunched up like this. What I'm going to do is make sure I've pulled it all the way to the left, given the left that I'm here working on the driver's side, and then continue to feed. This is where we want to be more careful, because if you have a pointed end on it, it can poke a hole in the tent fabric if you are forceful. So we want to make sure we are careful with what we're doing. Again, we don't want to poke a hole in our brand new Pro tent. Once it bunches, I kind of pull it that way away from the corner. That way it opens some of that other fabric up. Again, kind of rock it back and forth. You can see, just like that, we have made it into the corner. So that method of rocking it back and forth kind of works the tent fabric that way as you're pushing the keto rod this way, and it makes the loop nice and open for it to work its way through. So here, looking at the corner, you got a little bit poking out, push it out with our finger, and then take our Allen wrench, poke it in. That way it's about even. I'll check this side, nothing poking out. So we will go ahead and reinsert those set screws like we did for the bottom. At any point after you insert the keter fully into the lower system, you can go ahead and reinstall these corner bolts with a bit of Loctite. Just like so. Again, I'm going to get it started with my fingers. Just like that. We're going to use an impact. Just like that. I've kind of organized this a little bit better so it's not a big mess in here, and I'm actually going to open it up and make sure I didn't put it in upside down or backwards, or if there's any big wrinkles, anything like that in here. So go ahead and open this up. All right. After inspection, everything looks good. There's no wrinkles where the keto track is. Tent looks phenomenal. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this flat, kind of like I have, fold it up, make it look nice, and then we're going to throw the roof back on. If you haven't already, we're going to go ahead and remove this roof tape off the Plascore. It tends to be a bit easier to remove from this than it is the aluminum. I like to remove it kind of like a command strip, but pull out, kind of move your way down, continue pulling out. It will break, and it's super sticky. So we're just going to continue working it like this all the way down. I guess this method works too, but it tends to remove a little bit cleaner if you pull it out first. All right, this is of course easier with a friend, but because I'm a solo mission today, I'm going to show you how to do it here on your own. Probably a good idea to wear gloves, as this is fiberglass, but it is what it is. All right, I'm going to balance it on my head. I'm going to get it up just like this. Kind of slide it here into place, just like so. All right, now once I got it up there, I'm going to jump on the tailgate and show you guys how to insert it into the front hinge. I've got it to a good point here. It looks like we're about square with that front hinge. And you'll notice if you push it in, it's not quite fitting in. So what you do is you actually take it here at the rear, pull back on it a little bit, lift up, wiggle it in just a hair, and then it should slot right in, just like so. Just like that. And here at the rear, you'll notice that everything fits up. You've got nice gaps here in the corners. We'll actually adjust it just a hair. That way, everything fits as it should. Actually, I've got a little bit more of a gap here on my left side. So what I'm going to do is kind of wiggle it, just like this. Adjust it. All right, everything is fitting really well now. Okay, so now that this is in place, we're going to go ahead and install the side extrusion, the rear extrusion, and then put everything kind of back together. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start here with the rear. I did remove my square panels here in the rear just because the tent is a little bulkier than the original V2 tent. So this was having a hard time sitting flush. It'll be fine once everything's installed. Just definitely made it harder to get the rear extrusion on, and you wanna make sure you do not strip any of these bolts. So first we'll just start with this. You can see here on the bottom, there's a bit of a lip. That will key in to this this upper extrusion here. Go just like that, roll on, kind of tap it into place. Everything looks lined up. Now that we've got this rear extrusion in place, I'm going to take my 5/32 Allen key. I always prefer to start them with a hand tool. You can go around and zap them with the impact later, but I always recommend starting with a hand tool. So I'm gonna take it, a little bit of Loctite. A little bit goes a long way. Go ahead and just get these started. Again, be careful not to cross thread these. The threads behind it are aluminum. You don't have to be super careful with it as they are pretty robust threads, but you do want to make sure that you're not cross threading it. So I'll just go ahead and throw in the other three and then move on to the sides. All right, now that we got the rear on, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the sides. As we're tightening these up, we wanna make sure that they are going in tight. This one I've already applied Loctite to. I'll run it in there, kind of show you what we consider to be tight. So definitely want to make sure it's snug, and then once it's snug, we give it about a quarter turn where this is flexing, and it's nice and tight. So we'll just go ahead and make sure all of the bolts that we replace and put back in are that way. I'm going to go ahead and finish this side and then move on to the other one. All right, we've already put on the top side extrusion and rear extrusion, so we're gonna go ahead and finish it off by putting this rear extrusion in. The way that we're gonna mount this is we're gonna slide it directly up and then down. So just like this, move it in, and then here. This is where you're gonna start to use your dead blow. It doesn't take a lot of force. Actually, the corner works a little bit better. So we'll start with the corner, and you can see that it's going to key in right about here. So give it a little tap all the way down, and it should be fully seated. Now we can go ahead and Loctite and throw those rear bolts in. Before we go ahead and apply our roof tape, we want to make sure that we're adequately cleaning not only the plas core, but also the metal cap over it. That way the adhesion surface is nice and clean, and we don't have issues with this peeling up later on down the road. So the way that we run this roof tape, you're going to start with the rear and the front. You're going to go all the way to the edge right here. And if you want to leave a little extra, just a smidge, you can. So you can cut it flat there at the end. But we're going to start like this. Then I like to go all the way across and then lay it, pull a little tension on it, and then lay it flat. Just like this. All right, now that I've got this fully laid down, I'm going to go ahead and cut it here right on the edge. You can use a razor blade or a knife if you've got a sharp one. And then I'm going to start to smooth it out just like this. Make sure there's no wrinkles or bubbles. And this roof tape is actually 1.5 inches wide. That way it covers up the original roof tape that was on here in case you didn't want to pull it completely off. So even if you don't pull it off, it doesn't look terrible whenever you reapply your roof tape. So we'll take this cover off, and then we'll move on to the front and then do the sides. All right, now that we've got the front laid, we want to make sure it is the same way, edge to edge, and then we'll move on to the sides. All right, now that we've got this laid and smoothed out and cut off, we're going to start by finding the halfway point and overlapping it just like this on the extreme tape that we laid for the front. Just like this. I'll get it started here, and then I'm going to jump off of my stool here, get around to the back, keeping it tight, and I'll hop up here on the tailgate. So again, same with the front and the side, or the back and the sides. For the front, I'm going to pull it tight, lay it down, and then I'll start to smooth it out. All right, we've got passenger side finished up, working on the driver's side. One thing to note, whenever you're laying this down, you want to make sure on the front and the rear, you went edge to edge on the camper for this. And then the sides, we're going to do edge of tape to edge of tape. That way, everything is nice and sealed off. All right, the final step is we're going to remove the plastic covering from this last side. And then we are, ow, shit. Zoom in on that. Be careful. Oh, I'm bleeding. God. I just cut myself.